Washington helps. The last mile. The last mile, Washington helps.
I quit. How many times have we uttered those two words when faced with a challenge, an obstacle, or a wall that we thought was too great to overcome? Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests, I think we've all been there. I know I certainly have. So tonight, I will share a couple of experiences where I had to overcome such obstacles and why it is vitally important to never give up, but to go the last mile. Let's go back, way back to Jamaica in the year 2009. I was fresh out of college and by then had landed my first job. But it soon became clear to me that it was a dead-end job with no prospects for career growth. It was really a stepping stone, and I was ready to step out of it. My chance came one day when I saw an ad in the newspaper for an opening at Jamaica's most lucrative mining company, back then, before the global recession. Word on the street was, if you got a job there, you would be set for life. So I applied right away and got invited for an interview. I was so excited. But sometimes I make things difficult for myself. So instead of taking the day off to go for this interview, I took the morning off. Now, my current job was in Kingston, the capital. This interview was over 2 hours away, deep in rural Jamaica. So the morning of the interview, I took the earliest bus possible and was on my way. Things were going smoothly until I got off the bus and realized there were no taxis running that would take me on the final leg of my journey. A mere 5 minutes by car, but nearly 45 minutes on foot. It turns out taxis shuttle workers to the factory early in the mornings and pick them up later in the evenings. I got off the bus at the most inopportune time, right after the morning rush. I was stranded, literally in the middle of nowhere, and my interview in 40 minutes. So I did the only thing I could do, walk, because I was determined to get to that interview come rain or shine. And believe me, in tropical Jamaica, there was plenty of shine. Because as soon as I started to walk, I started to sweat. But dressed in my shirt and tie, I had to walk as fast as I could. But the more I walked, was the more I sweated. So I walked and wiped. I walked and wiped. It was futile. By the time I got there, just in the nick of time, I was drenched in sweat. But the important thing here was that I got there. And in the grand scheme of things, the interview itself was a breeze. In fact, I got the job. Getting to the interview was the hard part. Just imagine, had I given in to my obstacles that morning, I would have missed out on a great opportunity. Obstacles can come in many different forms and can be as unpredictable as the Minnesota weather. Fast forward 4 years later when I came to the US for grad school at the University of North Dakota, UND. 2 years into my program, I got a full-time job here in the Twin Cities. And since all I had left to complete was my master's thesis, I could do research independently while working full-time. So a few months later, I was finally ready to present my research. But guess what? I had to go back to North Dakota. So one Monday morning in early spring, I hit the road to drive from the Twin Cities all the way to the UND campus. And on that morning, I did check the weather and knew there would be some snow on the way. But boy, was I in for a treat. The closer I got to the North Dakota border, the heavier the snow got. The winds picked up, and before I knew it, I was driving in near whiteout conditions. And out of nowhere, this car appeared right in front of me. Now, I didn't slam on the brakes, because who does that? So I tried to quickly switch lanes. But the very thing I was trying to avoid was the very thing that happened. the car started to slide. And in a split second, it did a 180 degree and whoosh, off the road, it slid into the ditch. My heart was in my mouth. Am I alive? Am I hurt? Is the car damaged? Thankfully, the car was not damaged. And physically, I was fine. But mentally, I was a wreck. Should I go to the hospital? A motel? Call 911? In that moment of panic and confusion, I could have decided to quit, to not go on. After all, I was just in an accident. Here I was, innocently, going to present my research, to complete my dream. Yet this weather, this wall of snow, was intent on derailing my progress. But I was having none of it. As soon as that tow truck pulled me out, I pressed on. Cautiously, of course. But in extremely difficult driving conditions, I continued not just the last mile, but the last 100 miles to present my thesis that very same evening and complete my master's degree. Throughout history, we have seen countless examples of people, ordinary people like you and me, go the last mile. If Nelson Mandela had not gone the last mile, after being in prison for 27 years, he would not have emerged to continue fighting for the ideals he stood for and to eventually become South Africa's first black president. If Oprah Winfrey had quit after being sexually harassed and fired early in her career, she would not have discovered her true potential and go on to own the most successful talk show in history, becoming a billionaire in the process. Friends, whatever your last mile might be, whether it's time running out, or the weather, or people standing in your way, do not give up. Douglas MacArthur, noted five-star general, said it best. Age wrinkles the body, but quitting wrinkles the soul. Will you go your last mile? Mr. Toastmaster.
Great job.